surge of migration to both California and Utah. Now, any kiddos in here LDS? How many LDS kids do we have? Just don't be, raise your hand so I know. Okay, we're going to give you a little bit of history of, at that time, people called the Mormons and their move westward. So we'll see how much you know and how much I don't. We'll see if you can add on. So, because of the land we received and the opening of the West after the Mexican War, many groups of people thought it to be better to move west to the Mississippi and start a new life. And one of the largest, if not the largest group of people that made that decision were the Mormons. So they were one of the largest groups to migrate west after we secured land after the Mexican War. Now, you kids that are members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, do you know when and where your church was founded? Now, don't be bashful, you know. Girls, don't be looking down at your papers. Anybody? Well, what? No, you're too soon. You got the right. Where was it founded? Did you know that the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints was actually founded in 1830 in New York? Did you know that? 1830 in New York. So the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints was first founded in Western New York in 1830. Who founded that organization? You better know that. Joseph Smith. Joseph Smith, that's correct. And what Smith did is he announced that he had found golden plates on which sacred scriptures were engraved, which became known as what today? That a girl, the Book of Mormon. That's right. So, the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints was founded in Western New York in 1830 by a young man, Joseph Smith. And he had announced that he found golden plates on which sacred scriptures were engraved, which eventually became the Book of Mormon. Now, thousands of people converted to this new religious faith, and as the Mormons tried to build their religious society, what happened? Any of you kids know what happened to the Mormons when they tried to build this society of the religion they now believed in? What happened to them in Western New York? People didn't understand this new religion. They didn't like their ideals. So what did people do to these Mormons? What did they do? They harassed them or kicked them out. And so they had to move farther west, but they didn't first get west of the Mississippi. Anybody in here know where the Mormon settlement moved from New York to? Come on, you know this. I know you do. It's in Illinois. What was the name of the place? Very good. Nauvoo. Nauvoo, Illinois. So the Mormons first settled west of New York at Nauvoo, Illinois. And do you kiddos, any of you kids that are LDS, know what happened to Joseph Smith and his brother Hiram? What's that? They were shot? Where were they shot? She's right. They were arrested and jailed at Carthage, Illinois, for really no reason. So soon after the Mormons settled at Nauvoo, Illinois, Joseph Smith, his brother Hiram, and 2 other Mormons were jailed at Carthage, Illinois. They were jailed. Joseph Smith, Hiram Smith, and 2 other Mormons. And what happened? Anybody know in detail what happened? A mob. Oh, I didn't care. I'm going to write that down. Thank you. Carthage. C-A-R-T-H-A-G-E. And a mob formed outside the jail at Carthage. And they had put Joseph Smith and Hiram and the two other Mormons on the second floor. Anybody know why they stuck them on the second floor? Because that really wasn't where the jail was. The jail was on the first floor, and where the jailers slept and their quarters were on the second floor. Why did they take them up to the second floor? Anybody know? Any you kids know that? Why they took them to the second floor? Any guess from anybody that's not LDS?
Would sneak out some way or get...
No, they're actually concerned about their safety on the first floor, so they kind of put them up on the second floor to protect them better. Well, it didn't work very well because this mob stormed the jail at Carthage, went up to the second floor, shot Joseph Smith, Hiram Smith, and one of the other men. And when Joseph Smith was shot, what happened to him? Anybody know? Where did he fall out of? Fell out of the window. Okay? On the second floor. What did the fourth man do that didn't get shot? Anybody know that story? What's that? He hid somewhere. Anybody know where he hid? Under the bed. Very good. Okay? And he survived. But Joseph Smith and his brother Hiram were killed, along with this other Mormon. And so someone else had to take over the leadership of the Mormon church after Joseph Smith's death. And who was that, Adriana? Brigham Young. Very good, Brigham Young. And Brigham Young decided, if we're going to run out of trouble, we better run way out of trouble. So he took his following. He made preparations to load long caravans of wagons, and he moved westward across the Great Plains through the towering Rocky Mountains. So after the disaster at Carthage and Nauvoo, Illinois, Brigham Young takes over leadership of the Mormons, and he moves them in caravans of wagons westward across the Mississippi River, across the Great Plains, across the Rocky Mountains. And in 1847, they stop and settle on the eastern shore of the Great Salt Lake in present-day Utah. So Brigham Young brings the Mormons westward, and by 1847 they stop and they settle on the eastern shore of the Great Salt Lake. There they plow and irrigate the fields, and they lay out a town on the Jordan River, which eventually becomes Salt Lake City. Very good, Salt Lake City. So in 1847, the Mormons finally stop. They settle on the eastern shore of the Great Salt Lake. They plow and irrigate the fields while laying out a town on the Jordan River, which eventually will become Salt Lake City. And what did they erect there that's become world famous? The Salt Lake Temple, the LDS Temple, which is visited not only by people of the LDS religion, but a lot of people like to go see the temple. It's quite the architectural wonder, is it not? I happened to drive by the temple in Arizona. Where were we at? Where's the one in Arizona? Come on. Gilbert. Yeah, it was awesome. I mean, we drove right by it when I was in Arizona about a month ago. Quite a building. Well, what happens because of this influxion of population into Utah, mainly Mormons? It becomes a free state in 1896. So because of the population increase, finally in 1896 it will be admitted into the Union as a free state. 1896. Now, what other area did people flock into before the gold rush? What specific part of California prior to the gold rush? Northern California, Upper California. People started moving westward into Upper California because of its rich and beautiful scenery. You ever been to Northern California? What do you have in Northern California? Big sequoia trees and forests. It's beautiful. And people from Missouri, led by John Bidwell, back in 1841, traveled westward from Missouri, settling in Upper California. because of its rich beauty and scenery and opportunities. So meanwhile, another area attracting movement westward was Upper California, or Northern California. And in 1841, a party of men, women, and children led by John Bidwell set out from Missouri to Upper California. And they were very successful in their bid to get to Upper California. And as a result, other pioneers followed in their footsteps along the trail and went from the Midwest, so to speak, to Upper California. So again, in 1841, a party of men, women, and children led by John Bidwell set out from Missouri. The Bidwell pioneers were successful in their bid for a new beginning in Upper California, and as a result, many other pioneers followed their trail. Included in that group of pioneers that followed in their trail were the ill-fated Donner Party. The ill-fated Donner Party. You know anything about these people?
I've heard of that.
Okay. So included in the group of westward pioneers who followed Bidwell was the ill-fated Donner Party. 96 people were part of the Donner Party that traveled to Upper California. What happened to these poor people, however, in the fall of 1846, they got caught in the Sierra Nevada mountains during an early winter. Early winter set in, and all of a sudden, they had planned to be out of the Sierra Nevadas by winter. Well, they got an early winter, and where were they when winter hit? Right in the mountains. Remember we talked about Lewis and Clark? It was important they didn't make the trip up the Marias because they'd have been caught up near Canada in the winter. Same type of thing. These poor settlers on the Donner Party, they got in the Sierra Nevada mountains, and all of a sudden winter came in early, and they got stuck there in some pretty extreme conditions. Times became extremely tough on the people. They built crude shelters and struggled to survive. Big time. This is an example of what they would eat on or eat during this time. Soup made of boiled leather. That was a luxury. If you could find some boiled leather, get a piece of leather to boil up and make soup out of, that was something good. They also ate a lot of powdered bones from animals that they had killed. Wasn't a lot of game up in the mountains, was there? High in the mountains to shoot? No. So whatever animals they brought with them didn't last long. Of the 96 persons who started out with the Donner Party, 41 died. 41 died out of 96. Kind of interesting statistic. 2/3 of the women that were in that party survived, but 2/3 of the men in the Donner Party died. So 2/3 of the women and children, I should add, 2/3 of the women and children in the Donner Party survived, and 2/3 of the men in the party perished. Probably because the men were out doing what needed to be done to try to have everybody else survive, is my guess. Most of the survivors, the people that survived, had frostbit their toes and lost their toes, actually. They were frostbitten and they lost their toes. And there were rumors and accounts by those that survived of really bad conduct. When you're in a panic, you're in a bad situation, you know what I mean? You panic, and sometimes your conduct isn't very good, right? There were also some vicious rumors, other than bad conduct, that murder had occurred. That people got so angry at each other and argued about how to survive, they killed each other. And there was also rumor that those that died were used for food source for those that lived. That cannibalism was pretty rampant among the Donner Party. They were so hungry, they ate their dead. Now, nobody knows for sure what went on there, even though there were survivors, because the survivors had so many differing opinions. I mean, your account of something when you're under tremendous stress and in a crisis situation isn't always the same. You might remember something then and say something different later. So nobody knows, but documentation will say that there probably was bad conduct, there probably was murder, and there probably was cannibalism during that time. But some did survive. It was a horrible situation. All right, that'll take us then to the California Gold Rush. California Gold Rush. Now you know, there were people in California before this gold rush. It wasn't the gold rush who got everybody out, because we had talked about Bidwell bringing out people from Missouri to Upper California for that. So we're talking prior to the discovery of gold, and by 1848 there were several hundred Americans who had settled in California looking for a better life. Several hundred were already in California prior to this gold rush. And among those several hundred Americans who are already in California was a fellow by the name of John A. Sutter. He actually was from Switzerland. So one of the early settlers to California was John A. Sutter from Switzerland. And he had gotten out to present-day Sacramento area, and he had built a fort, and in the fort he had a really good sawmill he was using with water power to make more lumber to build more buildings, sell it, etc. So he wasn't in the gold business, he was in the sawmill business. So among the early settlers of California was John A. Sutter from Switzerland. He and his followers had built a fort and a very prosperous sawmill at present-day Sacramento, and things were pretty darn peaceful for the people of Fort Sutter until the morning of January 24th, 1848. The morning of January 24th, 1848, everything changed for Fort Sutter. Anybody know what happened? Besides, generally what happened. Anybody know the detail of what happened there? One of Sutter's employees, a guy by the name of James W. Marshall, was building or helping build a new mill, a second sawmill. They were going to have two because the first one was so prosperous. And while this employee, James Marshall, was helping build this new mill by a stream, he looked in the stream, and what did he see? Yellow flakes of metal, which turned out to be gold. Okay, so on January 24th, 1848, one of Sutter's employees, James W. Marshall, detected flakes of yellow metal at the bottom of a stream where they were building a new sawmill. And this shining metal turns out, obviously, to be gold. Now, he goes and tells Sutter, Marshall goes and tells Sutter, and Sutter wants him to keep it quiet because he wants to get this second mill built. He knows if this gets out, everybody that's working for him is going to do what? Start quit and start looking for gold. So he's trying to keep this a secret, but just like a small town, your secrets will never be kept. It gets out, and the news of gold discovery in California spreads like wildfire. And settlers flood into California. Thousands of Americans back east sold everything they owned, and headed west. Okay? So as soon as the word gets out, many thousands flooded into California. They sold everything they owned back east and headed to California to the gold fields. What they call these people that made this big turn? 49ers. Thus the name San Francisco 49er football team. You'd be surprised how many people do not know the significance of that nickname. So all these people in 1849 sell everything they have back east. They join the gold rush, and these 49ers forge the Great Plains. They go through the rugged Rocky Mountains and head to the gold fields of California. Now, they said that it took pioneers and wagons about 5 months to get from the eastern seaboard to the gold fields of California. About 5 months in covered wagons. So if you lived closer than the eastern seaboard, you can kind of figure out it took them a little while to get there. So it took pioneers approximately 5 months in wagon trains to arrive in California from the eastern seaboard. And if you traveled that route, especially if you didn't get out right away and you ended up getting there late, what you would see along that route from the eastern seaboard to the gold fields, you would see all kinds of household goods along the trail. Why would you see household goods? Forks, spoons, household goods. Why would you see them all over the trail? Yeah, that's exactly right. They're trying to drop weight in their wagons. They packed too much and it was getting to be taking them too long, getting to be too hard. So you often see a lot of household goods just dumped along the trail that people had thrown out to lighten the load. What else might you see? Dead bodies of animals that either perished on the trail or they decided to butcher along the trail to eat. So dead bodies of animals along the trail. And you would also see graves of those pioneers that were either struck down by Indians, or disease, or hunger, or extreme cold, or extreme heat, depending on when they went there. Okay? So it wouldn't be uncommon to see household goods along the trail, dead bodies of or dead animal bodies, so to speak, and graves of people that perished along the trail, either by hostile Indians, or disease, or hunger, or extreme cold, or extreme heat. Now what happened when these 49ers got to these gold fields? What did they put